I'm pretty sure this is going to start out kind of sounding like a rant, but it's really kind of informative. So let's see where this goes and see how many people get upset about it because that's what I live for. While the 20th century comic book industry is dying, the 21st century industry is taking off. So, what does that mean for some layman people? Let's just keep it 100% real. Comic books are roughly about 100 years old, and we're still trying to sell them like we used to in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And let's just be 100% honest, those days are gone. I mean, I'm a lover of comic books. I've been actively collecting since, I'm going to say, the early 80s. And I really mean like the late 70s, but really the early 80s is when I really started reading them every month, grabbing tons of books and looking at stuff. And the business model they had was a very simple one, and it worked because, that's what it was. It was an inexpensive book that you'd find on the newsstand, and we're talking, this was like in pre-comic book stores. Maybe there's like a few of them at the time, but very, very rare. I remember the first comic book store I went to was in the early 80s, and I lived in Danbury, Connecticut. If you can find it on a map, I'll be impressed. I had to go to New Milford, Connecticut to this comic book shop, and the first comic book I ever bought from a comic book shop was The Phoenix, The Untold Story. I guess the original story, which they planned for the Dark Phoenix saga, but was changed, of course, to make it a little more realistic. I think either one would have been great personally, but I'm glad it was out there and I'm glad I bought it. But the idea of buying comic books from a stand, aka the floppies, the monthly floppies, was a standard idea and expected. But now in the 21st century, I don't even understand why that's even a thing. People say, well, you need the money to generate to get the. It's like, dude, your sales suck. 20,000 copies is an awesome hit. When I was a kid, 100,000 copies could get you canceled. They also kept a price that was more realistic. But once again, when I was a kid in the late 80s, the price jumped up tremendously. And don't get me wrong, the quality also jumped up at the same rate. But the technology attached to it seemed to be the thing that people were, I'd say, exploiting. And now, in 2020, basically 2023, I mean, we only got a couple more days left, we're still using the same mindset that we did from 60 years ago. Even when I say that, it hurts. I can't even lie. So, why are we thinking in that way? And some people are like, well, no, we're putting comics online. You got Comixology. Yeah, Comixology is trying to sell digital comic books for $3, $4 a piece. And it's like, why are you charging that much for a PDF, aka light, aka images? And even better, they control it. If Comixology goes belly up tomorrow, and let's be honest, it may not, but what if it does? All the content that you have, you can't do anything with it because you are quote unquote bought it from them, and they still kind of own it. And there's that whole aspect. And let's be honest, let's not even get into the whole piracy thing because I think if done right, piracy could be your best friend because let's be honest, the 21st century is all about people getting what they want, and they're going to get it. They're going to get it. So we need to think differently about this whole thing from the get go. You can't be thinking like it's 1965 or 1970 or 1985. You've got to think about it being the 21st century. And the first thing I would do if I was any publisher of merit, which I believe, I would say I would stop doing floppies. That's just a waste of time. That's just a waste of time for you. That's just something silly, and it's not a good plan because the costs you're going to do just to get those out are just tremendously bad. Now, that being said, I would focus on doing trade paperbacks. That would be kind of my bread and butter. That's where the big focus would be. I would go all out on that. I would double up on that very quickly. And people are saying, "Well, Lewis, I don't have any money to do the individual books. How am I going to do a trade?" Right. That is a sensible situation and a sensible problem. This is how I would handle that. The books that I would put out that eventually we're going to write up in trade, I would put them out online as digital content. And I would do it. We release either monthly or maybe even weekly. Release a couple pages. Let's say 25. I'll make easy math for me. For 4 weeks in a week, we'll say we're going to release 8 pages. 4 times 8, 36. So 36 page comic book. And every week you release 8 pages. Bam, 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 bam. And it still is a month feel that people are coming, or if you want to be crazy, release a page a day. Get that kind of Monday through Friday. And then you get the whole comic book. And people, but they read it very slowly because they're going to read, they want to read a bunch of pages at a time. So I would release eight, seven, eight a week. Like you pick a good day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, somewhere you can get the traffic, and you build that kind of traffic. And while you're doing that, I would also be creating my own version of the official handbook slash who's who of your universe. So every week we're building to that. Anytime we release something, you're building some more information. You're building more information. You're building more information. And you turn your website into the comic book place that people get. And you release all your new books like that. And you'll see right then and there, basically, at a moment's notice, how you're doing. Now people are saying, well, where's the money coming in, Lewis? I don't see the money. Well, it's time to advertise. That's right. You put advertisements on your website. You turn your website into what it's supposed to be, a place where people are going to come and see stuff. And initially you put up maybe advertisements for stuff that are related, maybe comic book stores, maybe you hit video games, maybe you hit all that kind of stuff. You get people to come see, you get the traffic, boom. You make the money that way. Then you collect these things down the road, 6 months, you collect them in a book. The best part, people say, well, why would they buy the book? Because people have been reading it for 6 months and they like you. And let's be honest, you're going to get people coming every week. Some people will never buy your stuff and they just won't. They just won't. They just won't. They don't care enough about it. But the fans that you get from doing that, they'll be hardcore fans. You can sell directly to them. They will love you. They will support you. And they will do everything they can to make sure you're a success. And that happens with most comic book companies. And you can develop this over time. Now, I know what you're saying. It's like, but Lewis, how do I afford this? What do I do? Well, you got to save some money up. You got to take some extra gigs. You got to develop this stuff. You got to start eating some ramen noodles. This is the stuff you have to do. You you have to develop income coming in. Advertising is one way. Doing a YouTube channel talking about it, that's another way. Think about in this century, the 21st century, how you can use affiliate marketing to help you be a success in comic books. Most comic book companies aren't doing that. Not because they don't want to. A lot of them don't know how to do it. You've got these guys still doing the same things they were doing in 1985 like it's cutting edge. I mean, let's talk about things that drive me crazy. Why hasn't 3D animation been really incorporated into 2D comic books to help save time and effort? People still haven't talked about that. I talk about that from what Red Star did 20, now going almost 25 years ago, and they still haven't got to that point yet. So, what are we doing? This 20th century mindset that people are stuck in is going to fail. And more importantly, is failing. We see the numbers. People are not buying comic books at any way the rate they used to. The cost is too expensive. Like I said before, no mother with 3 children is going to spend $15 on 3 comic books. Not going to happen. You need a very low barrier to entry. You need something that's either free or, not more than $2. And people are saying, well, we can't do it for more than $2. It's impossible. If I can clone sheep and put people on the moon and put a space station in the sky, I can figure out a way to make a $2 comic book. That works for everybody. And yes, I have a plan for that too, so don't be surprised. So that's what I'm thinking. I think we need to stop thinking like it's the 20th century and start thinking like it's the 21st century, acting accordingly. That's going to be the only thing that saves us or anybody. So that's my feeling. What do you feel about it? Let me know. So do us a huge favor. If you like what we talked about, click the like button below. If you hate what I talked about, hey, click the hate button below. The hate button. We are absolutely good either way. We appreciate you just coming by and listening. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you all later.